Welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping right into something today that might just radically change how you look at your next trip to the gym. We're going to ask a pretty bold question. Can a workout actually be a scientifically validated medical prescription for trauma? Well, we're unpacking a brand new meta-analysis on PTSD today to find out exactly that. Right off the bat, I gotta pose this central question to you. For decades, you and I have been told that exercise is just a generic lifestyle choice, right? You know the drill. Eat your veggies, get some sleep, go for a run. But what if we completely shifted that perspective? What if, for someone who is dealing with the absolutely debilitating psychological and physical effects of severe trauma, exercise wasn't just a healthy habit, but a highly targeted, precise medical treatment?
All right, let's dive into Section 1, the PTSD treatment gap.
So to really get why this new research is such a huge deal, we have to first acknowledge the harsh reality of PTSD, and frankly, the very real limitations of our current standard of care. When someone gets diagnosed with PTSD, the go-to first-line treatments are usually talk therapies, like trauma-focused therapy, and often they're paired with medications. And look, those are fantastic. They help a lot of people. But there's a massive empathy gap here. A really substantial chunk of patients either don't respond at all, or they only get partial relief. That means they're left battling these incredibly tough residual physical symptoms day in and day out. We're talking chronic insomnia, constant hyperarousal, and just unexplained physical pain. It is an agonizing way to live, which is exactly why researchers are working around the clock to find complementary treatments to bridge this gap.
Which brings us to Section 2, synthesizing the science. So let's talk about this monumental piece of research, a comprehensive 2026 meta-analysis published in Complementary Therapies in Medicine. This was basically a giant medical detective mission. Looking at the flowchart mapping their process, you can really see the staggering scale of this investigation. The researchers didn't just want to know if exercise kinda helped. No, they wanted a bulletproof, definitive answer on how structured programs impact PTSD. So they cast a massive net across 5 major scientific databases and pulled in 7,650 initial records. From there, they ruthlessly filtered it all down. They tossed duplicates, irrelevant studies, and anything that didn't meet their incredibly strict criteria. They literally sifted through thousands of documents just to find the absolute gold standard trials.
And out of those 7,650 starting records, they were left with this crucial number, 16. Just 16 randomized controlled trials actually survived that rigorous gauntlet. Meaning, the data we're about to look at isn't just based on some loose observations, it's based on the absolute highest standard of scientific testing, where people are randomly assigned to either a structured exercise program or a non-exercise control group.
Across those 16 golden trials, researchers captured the experiences of 663 total participants. And what's great is that these folks spanned a really wide range of demographics. We're talking average ages from 45 to 69, including both military personnel and everyday civilians. So it gives us a highly reliable, super robust data set to answer our big question.
All right, the moment of truth. Section 3, the results are in.
So, after all that sifting and filtering and serious number crunching, what did they actually find? Well, the results are incredibly thrilling for the future of mental health care. If you look at this main plot, every single horizontal line represents an individual trial. But I want you to focus on the diamond right at the very bottom. That represents the pooled data. See how that diamond is shifted entirely to the left of the center zero line? In the stats world, that leftward shift is a beautiful sight. It literally represents a statistically significant drop in PTSD symptoms for the folks in the exercise groups compared to the control groups.
Now, the researchers quantified this drop with a metric called a Hedges G of negative 0.49. Don't worry, I am absolutely not going to make you take a statistics exam today. Let's just translate that dense math into a plain English, incredibly empowering takeaway. The data absolutely unequivocally proves that structured exercise reduces PTSD symptoms. It just works. The science entirely backs it up.
Moving right along to Section 4, yoga versus traditional exercise.
Okay, so we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that exercise works. But does the specific type of workout, or even the person doing it, actually change the outcome? Like, is lacing up your shoes for a run the same as hitting the weight room or practicing mindful stretching? These subgroup plots act sort of like our ultimate evidence board here. On the left, researchers split the data between yoga-based interventions and other traditional sports or exercises. And on the right side, they split the data between military personnel, like active-duty soldiers and vets, and civilian populations. They were hunting for the absolute optimal prescription.
And here is the really crucial point. When you look closely at the numbers, yoga and military groups actually did show slightly larger positive effects on paper. Why? Well, yoga is a highly structured mind-body practice, so it provides incredible consistency. And military groups usually have a higher baseline fitness, and they're just more familiar with following a strict regimen. However, and this is a massive however, the formal statistical tests showed that the differences between these groups were not actually statistically significant. What does that mean for you? It means you don't have to force yourself into a yoga studio if you'd rather be lifting weights in your garage. All forms are beneficial. Whether you're a veteran doing structured yoga or a civilian lifting weights, those therapeutic benefits are absolutely there.
Now this scatterplot right here, this might just be the most surprising finding in the entire paper. It compares the amount of PTSD symptom improvement to the total hours of supervised training. Notice anything weird? The trend line is basically flat. Whether participants did just 10 hours of supervised exercise or pushed all the way to 50 hours, it did not equate to proportional leaps in improvement, which is amazing news for anyone who doesn't want to live at the gym. Even short, manageable programs are highly effective. You literally don't have to spend your entire life working out to start healing.
Which brings us to Section 5. Why does it work?
So, we know the what. We know exercise works, we know it works across different types of workouts, and we know it doesn't take thousands of hours to see a benefit. But to really appreciate this whole thing, we need to shift gears to the why. What is actually happening inside the body and the brain of a trauma survivor when they hit the gym? The researchers managed to break this pretty dense science down into 3 really digestible, actionable buckets for us: psychological, neurobiological, and social mechanisms.
Let's kick it off with the first one, the psychological mechanism. In clinical terms, exercise acts as what's called behavioral activation. One of the most devastating hallmarks of PTSD is avoidance, right? Social withdrawal, inactivity, just this brutal spiral of negative thinking. Well, the sheer act of committing to a workout schedule physically interrupts that avoidance cycle. By progressing through a program and just hitting those small daily goals, a person rebuilds their self-efficacy. They are literally replacing a feeling of helplessness with a concrete, undeniable sense of competence.
Next up, we have the neurobiological mechanism. And honestly, this is where it gets incredibly sci-fi, but it is 100% real. Trauma physically damages the brain and the nervous system. But physical exercise? It initiates neurobiological rewiring. The data points out that exercise actively restores the HPA stress axis, which is basically your body's central stress response system. It lowers systemic inflammation across your whole body. It even enhances plasticity in the hippocampus, which is the part of your brain responsible for memory and emotion that takes a huge hit from trauma. You are quite literally physically repairing the hardware of the brain through movement. How amazing is that? And finally, we have the social mechanism. Trauma shatters trust. It just does. But many of these highly effective exercise interventions are actually delivered in group or team formats. Stepping into a group fitness class provides a highly structured, incredibly safe space for a survivor to just experience social contact again. It offers this wonderful low-pressure environment to slowly start rebuilding interpersonal trust and connection completely outside of a formal and, let's face it, sometimes intimidating psychotherapy office. Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought to close out today's explainer. Based on the truly overwhelming evidence from this rigorous meta-analysis, the answer seems undeniably clear. Physical exercise is a potent, scientifically proven therapeutic component for trauma recovery. So, the real question is, should we start prescribing a workout right alongside a therapist? I'm going to leave you to chew on that one. Thank you so much for joining me today to unpack this fascinating science, and as always, keep learning.